We will now move on to our final panel of today. It is titled Innovators in Sustainability and Wellness, the Entrepreneurs. Now, this panel will feature entrepreneurs who have developed innovative solutions from reducing waste to improving wellness. And their innovations are changing consumer habits, so we're going to hear about that. Our next moderator is Monica Dolores Hooks. She is a mega marketer, as I like to call her, and executive director of the Women's Entrepreneur Initiative. Monica.
Thank you so much, Claudia and Jill and the Women's Chamber of Commerce. We are pleased and delighted to be here to talk about the innovators in sustainability and wellness. So, as Claudia mentioned, I'm the executive director of the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative, which is the only incubator of its kind in the nation focused on women, sponsored by the city, and fully in line with the role of economic mobility, resilience, and equity for women, because we believe strong communities have strong women. We also believe that good business is run by women, just as a default. So our mission is to elevate, engage, and empower entrepreneurship through women, because again, women mean good business. I've got the pleasure and honor of introducing 4 members of our current cohort, 4 superstars, 4 innovators in the space of sustainability and wellness. Sustainability and wellness. First, we've got Victoria Randall from The Secret Cocktail. We have Tangeria Willis from ECloset. We have Kiana Wingfield from Cool Moms Dance 2. And last and certainly not least, we've got Akisi Stokes from Wonder Grub. I'm going to ask each of the ladies to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about why they are an innovator in their space. And particularly of note, 2020 and 2021 have been some challenging years for everyone on the panel and everyone in our community. And I think we as a group believe that the solutions are within us. And we believe that we've got the solutions that are going to guide us into much brighter days and a number of silver linings. Solutions we've already heard about today. Shout out to my AT-Alien sisters, Dalavant and others. But these women really are leading the way, and I can't wait for this community to hear their innovations and what we see for the future. So we will start with Akisi Stokes of Wonder Grubs. And Akisi, can you tell us a little bit about the innovations you're developing in food sustainability?
Hi, thank you. Happy Women's History Month and also International Women's Day. I'm glad to be here. So CEO and co-founder of Wonder Grubs, we actually supply premium high quality insect protein, and not that kind of edible that you find in Colorado. So we got into the business, my co-founder and I, Kareem Nelson, for a lot of the reasons that Ms. Elizabeth mentioned earlier when you talked about food relief. And many of the reasons, the barriers that people run into: insufficient income, lack of transportation, poor quality of food, shelf life. Also, when we start looking at food relief in countries that were devastated by catastrophic event, a lot of times people didn't think about the agriculture. It takes a number of years to come back. And so we wanted to provide a protein that didn't require a lot of natural resources to grow. It also was very resilient. And through a long winding road, we landed on grubs, mealworms that people affectionately call them. And we realized that we didn't have to wait for a catastrophic event. They were a perfect protein option that was affordable for people, it was accessible, they were nutritious. And when you talked about natural resources or sustainability, we also didn't want to cause harm to the earth growing this protein. So they require no direct water use. They require no chemicals. Their 10% of the land is required compared to traditional livestock to grow. Higher protein concentration, food and waste can double as inputs, and reusable energy. They align with 10 of the 17 sustainable development goals. I could go on and on and on. And so with that, we've expanded, we pivoted right before 2020 and COVID said pivot again. And so we are currently launching our Internet of Things enhanced shipping container that we fabricated into a grub hatchery that is located currently at Piedmont Park, hopefully to open at the end of this month or beginning of April, where we're showcased to people what it looks like to grow with grubs, touch them, taste them. We're also doing, my dog likes sustainability too. We're also doing, we also in partnership with Georgia Tech have launched 2 MVPs that we're beta testing with 2 farm cooperatives in Alabama and Mississippi. I'm a woman, I'm gonna keep going. Alabama and Mississippi. Also, we've got, we're also launching another beta with 2 international communities, with 2 refugee communities, displaced Cameroonians in Ghana and Nigeria. And so we're also going to be introducing hatchery to home farm kits to kids, showing them what it looks like to be environmental stewards. And we've got a bunch of little add-ons and some additional things coming down the pike, some surprises for Atlanta. So we want to show what it looks like to have a food system or reimagine a food system that's more resilient using insects as food and not as pests.
Thank you, Akisi, and your puppy. Tanjuria, talk to us about sustainability in fashion and perhaps one of the first here coming to Atlanta.
Well, hi everyone. It's been a wonderful day. I've enjoyed all of the panelists and the entire day. It's been amazing, Jill. My name is Tanjuria Willis. I am the owner of ECloset. ECloset is a sustainability lifestyle company. It is a cutting-edge boutique. We're committed to saving the environment by offering designer brand previously loved clothing, while educating shoppers on the personal and global benefits of sustainability and sustainable fashion. What most people don't realize is that approximately 85% of all textiles thrown away in the US end up in the landfills or are incinerated. The fashion industry is responsible for about 10% of all greenhouse gases into the atmosphere and about 20% of all global wastewater every year. So our goal is to use technology as well as our showroom, as well as fashions, to empower women to embrace their personal style by also saving money, while also, because women can do everything, while also reducing the carbon footprint on the environment. So we have a bunch of things coming up. We have our showroom facilities. We're also building out technology so that at the touch of a finger, you can get more information about how you can wear your clothing stylishly while saving on the carbon footprint. And we've also have an event coming up that we're planning. We will be launching coming soon in the next month or so with the Sustainability Fashion Week, where we'll be featuring designers that produce sustainably and ethically friendly, eco-friendly clothing, and a marketplace on how you can find all of those things.
Very nice. I am looking forward to Sustainable Fashion Week launching here in Atlanta. We're going to pivot now to wellness. And Kiana Wingfield of Cool Moms Dance 2, can you tell us how you're applying sustainability and wellness in your business and innovating?
Absolutely. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. I'm Kiana Wingfield, CEO and co-founder of Cool Moms Dance 2. I founded the organization with my 2 now middle school age children, and just like everyone else, just being completely practical. In 2020, our whole lives turned upside down as moms. Like everything that we knew to be a norm became abnormal. Our children were home completely. Those who were homeschooling prior were familiar with life as we know it to a certain degree, but all the things that we used in order to stay healthy, our children being in programs, in school, being able to, go to gym and all of these things, they became scarce when it came to COVID and needing to work from home and do school from home. So Cool Moms Dance 2 is an organization that was providing family health and wellness programs in the likes of dance fitness classes, mental health wellness programs, but we were doing it in person. And everything we did was about touching each other, having an intimate connection, because we utilized dance as a form of therapy. But we had to pivot with the world when the world changed. And at that point, we had to see technology as a partner in order to make sure that we can still deliver service, but also the rich experience that families needed in order to stay mentally and emotionally healthy. Like, you can imagine the world changing at the drop of a dime. And, you know, mental health was such a stigmatized thing at that time. But now everyone is in line with the fact that we need a release. We need some way to stay connected. Even when you're in the home with your children, we need activities. We need something to keep us revitalized and feeling good and just feeling like we have an outlet. And Cool Moms Dance 2 was created for that. And now that we are partnering with technology and have different outlets to work with, it allows us to create a experience that's rich at home for families to do together in the comfort of their home. So it has definitely been an adjustment. I know that there's many moms in this space who can relate to the adjustment of needing to be all the things at once. You're homeschooling, you're doing Zooms with your business, you have all these different hats on. But when it comes time to really letting your hair down, how are we managing that? How are we engaging in the most meaningful conversations? And what we do is we open up lines of communication through dance so that we can meet on a human level with our children to further a conversation to address the mental well-being of ourselves going through all of these things. So I hope to get to learn more about you all, but I would love to, you know, get you more familiar with Cool Moms Dance 2 and what we're doing with technology, as well as innovating in our space.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wingfield. I know a lot of moms that need this service. And then we've got Victoria Randall, CEO of The Secret Cocktail. Victoria, I know it's not about a glass of wine. So tell us how you're making innovations and strides in the place of health and wellness.
Thank you. By the way, this event has been nothing but awesome. Just hearing the way other women's minds work and just further pushing you to push your limits and your things that you can do. So I'm very happy to be here. So yeah, my name is Victoria Randall. I'm a family nurse practitioner and the owner of The Secret Cocktail. And we are a consulting agency. We actually consult to help start healthcare career schools across the nation. As you know, with the pandemic, well, first of all, before the pandemic, there was already a huge shortage in healthcare workers, period. And the pandemic just added to that significantly. My firm helps to start healthcare career schools, but we focus more on CNA, which is Certified Nursing Assistant. A lot of people don't realize, but Certified Nursing Assistant education is federally regulated. So we know with the federal government, anytime they regulate something, it becomes a hassle. And creating and erecting these schools all over became a hassle for people, and it was not easy. So I already had experience. I had already done it for myself. So I started consulting to help other people. Now, what does that look like on a global level? Well, whether you know it or not, a fourth of our population come 2050 will be 65 years of age and older. What does that mean? What is already a traumatized system is going to be tripled. I mean, I don't know the number come 2050 and so on, 20 years after that. So there's going to be a huge need for healthcare workers. And so with the work that we're doing, we are helping to bridge that gap significantly throughout the USA. Now, in addition to that, with COVID, now we had to take healthcare education online. Well, how do you do that? What does it look like to care for a person or to learn how to care for a person from a virtual environment? And many nurses are old school nurses. I'm one of them. You know, I remember back in the day, we used to chart on paper. Now we have computers and so on. So this is a huge learning curve for a lot of my clients, trying to figure out how do I now teach healthcare online. So we have put together lots of resources, a lot of resources that already just kind of exist, and some resources that we are currently building just to help our clients understand how to bridge that gap and deliver that healthcare education so that we devise competent care workers that when they get out there. Because I mean, let's be honest, if you knew your healthcare provider learned through online platform, you would be a little afraid, I'm sure. Let's just be honest. So making sure that we're putting together curriculums, and that's where we specialize. We specialize in curriculum development policies and procedures for our clients to help ensure that they have a curriculum that is robust and that definitely provides the students with what they need so that they are competent and caring healthcare providers. So that's a little bit about what I do. And I'll stop there because I have a visitor.
That's awesome. Ladies, thank you for introducing yourselves, your companies, and some of the topics that we're going to touch on in this discussion. Because I heard things like interconnectedness, using technology to pivot. Connecting the nonprofit to the for-profit is something that we talked about, and adult learning. Let's talk a little bit about the interconnectedness. And Tanjuria, Akisi, I'd love for you guys to talk about the connection between food and fashion.
Tanjuria, you're on mute. That's our sketch for 2021. You're still on mute.
Yeah, you're still on mute, Tanjuria.
Okay, so sorry about that. With sustainability, everything is interconnected. I mean, it really is. There's all these pieces of things that you reuse and you recycle. And so, you know, with fashion, and I think everything almost goes back to food. And with fashion, there's also this health, a health aspect of that, where most people that are in the fashion industry or anything around fashion, there's always this healthier eating component that's involved in that. And when Akisi and I started talking, it was no different than using a healthier alternative, with so many people now going to veganism and eating a lot more things healthier and trying to find alternatives to some of the synthetic items that are out there, in the same way that we do with fashion, replacing synthetic materials and fabrics in that same manner. We saw it as a fit, as also with able to provide for my fashion shows, provide models with meals that could use alternative proteins, such as Akisi's grubs or things like that. So for us, it was, you know, it went hand in hand with being able to provide a totality in healthy services for people and sustainable living.
Yes. So when Tanjuria called me up, I was like, yes, she gets us. You know, and so the thread that Tanjuria's mentioning when she talks about, yeah, there definitely is a synergy between, you know, healthy alternative. When you talk about sustainability, it's multifaceted, you know, so it comes in many ways through fashion. And so when we think about even some of the things that traditional livestock, when you talk about protein, are used for, majority of it is not used for food. You know, a lot of it is used for clothing. Some of it's used for like lipids in your downy, you know, that softens your clothing. So it's interesting the different things that what we associate with food may be used for. When you talk about also when Tanjuria and I were talking about, you know, how to incorporate the grubs into it, it was showing, okay, from a sustainable part, when she talks about workforce reskilling, you know, introducing people to different ways that they can look at sustainability. We have some people and some of the farm cooperatives that we work with who are reusing clothing for mesh to use with the grubs. So there are a lot of different synergies that we've been able to find. And so we're really excited to be working with Tanjuria on this and letting her allowing us to introduce this to people and kind of reducing the ick factor around what it looks like to eat with insects. You know, as I tell many people, it's a really short process. You know, unless you've grown up on a farm like I have, unless you've killed your own cow or your own chicken, grubs are a little less offensive. So
imagine that.
I can imagine.
You know, you guys are talking about ways to introduce new concepts around sustainability to the market, to individuals for a healthier life. And so to me, as a business person, that speaks to adoption, customer adoption. And Kiana, I know that we were speaking about, really how Cool Moms Dance 2 has had to and wanted to leverage technology to increase adoption of your platform, which is really around mental wellness, mental health and wellness, something that I think, a few years ago was a lot more taboo than it is today, because we have to deal with it in these times. Can you talk a bit about how technology has helped your platform and your company be more interconnected and allowed you to pivot and perhaps open up the market for customer adoption?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that, Monica. So with Cool Moms Dance 2 being a in-person physical class that we hosted, when we started to pivot, we were looking at different means that we can use in order to still reach our customers, get to new people, because more of our work was hyper-local. And it gave us the opportunity to now expand and find different ways to connect. So streaming, utilizing video as a means to deliver our classes was something that we did initially. It was our first pivot. And it's been the pivot that made the most sense, being able to make sure that, we can stream either live or make sure that video was available for our clients. But one thing that became very, very interesting was pivoting to using different means of technology as far as applications were concerned, and just expanding your mind frame, just how you can reach those who are in need of your services. And one thing that we did that has been really, really impactful, because I know that with the studies, they say that, when you're searching for moms or looking to target moms in particular, you're looking Pinterest, Facebook, those are your main areas and places that you would find that. But one thing that was really amazing is that in the end of 2020, we were able to adopt even the platform Clubhouse. And the one thing that was interesting about integrating that into our model was because I was able to formulate something different in a space where mental health and well-being was a little less taboo because people were more comfortable talking rather than needing to be in person, being dressed up. It was more vulnerable and open and safe in order to have these spaces. And we created an amazing space that was expansive. It's a part of the big picture of Cool Moms, but it gave us another way to look at how we can adopt customers, how we can engage in supporting and providing value that is important for the customers. We were able to build a club and a network of about 12,000 people in 45 days. And it has been an organic growth. But the one thing that I noticed was that the whole purpose of the work that we were doing, addressing mental health well-being, was being addressed at that moment. We were able to have meaningful conversations and open up lines of communication the same way we were with parents and children, but this became something that expanded and showed us, okay, there are different ways as we continue to grow and the world changes that we can reach our clients, that it doesn't have to be the same model that we expected to start with, and that when you find something that works, you pivot and you're able to integrate that into the services that you provide. And I think that that was really valuable because someone who is just used to doing what works, it was very interesting to pivot and realize, okay, this was a seamless move for us. And I didn't expect it to happen that way, but Clubhouse just became definitely a space where we were able to connect and really get a lot of user information, client information about people that we normally wouldn't just do a survey, because it was more intimate and they were willing to express and share things that were necessary for data points for us to really understand, what do you need? How do you need it? How can we better serve, making sure that your mental well-being is being addressed and that the activities and the things that you need to in order to connect with your children, that you're actually getting that, because that's something that I think that we lose in the process of just running a business, that checking in and iterating with the clients are so important. So I'm super grateful for the different means of technology that we've been able to adopt, and working with Georgia Tech and being able to build out an app to support what it is that we're doing with Cool Moms Dance too, so that they can reach us in that way. All of these forms of technology have been very helpful in us pivoting and keeping a pulse on what it is that our clients need and what our community needs to continue to build community.
I think that's so interesting. I mean, from a CEO perspective, that you can better serve your client. But I also think it's interesting that clients are getting the value that you're trying to provide, even through these new channels. I think that, I know that I heard from a peer here in the last 9 months that they were practicing yoga through video, and they didn't realize that they could still have the same effects or garner the same effects of the benefits of the yoga, looking through a screen. They felt that I had to be in a room, I had to be in this hot room, I had to touch my instructor. And I think that that's really, really interesting for this community of women and for the market at large. Victoria, you've talked about e-learning and some of maybe the stigma around, like, oh, you can't really learn it through the computer. But I know that you've been able to incorporate online learning to facilitate your courses. I know you've been able to even implement new models around train the trainer so that you can scale faster using the tech. Can you talk a little bit about the success of the e-learning model and some of the things, the myths that you were subscribing to and that you don't anymore because it's working for your business?
Well, yeah. So one of the biggest things I realized very early on was I can't be the PowerPoint girl. Like, I'm not going to be the PowerPoint girl. It's not cool being the PowerPoint girl. Nobody likes the PowerPoint girl. So if you're a PowerPoint girl and you're here, then you need to hear that. So I had to embrace that because that's all I knew was PowerPoint, right? So I recognized that I personally had a deficit. And before I can even educate my audience, I need to educate myself. So I actually hired an instructional design nurse who came in and talked to me and taught me just like all these different resources I could use. And it was so mind-blowing. So when I started developing my curriculum, because by the way, in addition to helping people start these schools, either I do it directly with them through complete project management, or I coach them through that process. So in coaching them through that process, I have different online learning modules that they have to go through, and then they meet with me and so on. So I was able to just kind of play with those modules initially to see how my initial cohort, how they responded to them, and they loved it. And then I was like, oh, not only are they loving this, but now they can recognize, like, I can use this for my students when I teach later, right? So it's a trickle down effect. But to your point, in creating more CNAs and more healthcare workers, we needed more nurses that were qualified to do that. One would think because you're a nurse, you know how to train other healthcare workers, and that's not true. There's real life and there's test life. And so the real life, we know how to teach, but the test life, how to get people to pass these exams, is a whole nother story. So through learning all these different resources, one of my favorite is Kahoot. I don't know if anyone is familiar with Kahoot, but I absolutely love Kahoot. So, we use different things like Kahoot for gamification with education with my clients, and I teach them to do the same thing for their students, because guess what? I don't care who you are. Everyone has a cell phone. And I don't care who you are, after 3 hours, you're going to start scrolling. Someone has scrolled during this meeting, right? So if we can take a phone and create it as a gamification tool through education, we are taking away that ability to do something we have no business and encouraging them to actually use it for learning. And so when I teach that, it's kind of mind blowing, like, wow, I didn't even know that was an option. So a lot of these tools that we can empower people to use through teaching healthcare can actually be straight through their cell phone, as well as simulations. There's patient Miss Jones, and here's what's going on with her, and tap on the screen, what would you do? And it encourages real-time critical thinking on, what do I need to do right now? Does Miss Jones need oxygen? Do I need to call for help? What do I need to do? And they have time frames where they got to figure that stuff out. So it has been, from when you talk about scalability, from being able to just touch the clients here in Atlanta and Georgia, rather, because that's where my client base was initially, I was able to go global, nationally. So I help clients on a national level now, all throughout the United States. And now I catch myself flying here and flying there to congratulate my clients on their grand openings, and just helping them with instructor development so that they can further learn what they need to teach their students and so on. So, and I do all that through Zoom or Google Teams, and just showing them it's the internet. They can just go right into the software, the gaming software, and we do it from there. It's been awesome. And it helps them overcome that barrier where they think they can't do it. When they do it with me, then they're comfortable. And when they get to their students, they're not fearful anymore. So that's big too.
That is big. Guys, I want to open it up for the panel. I have in my notes, sustainability and wellness K through 12, because I think all of your initiatives, your businesses touch not just women, but everyone that's connected to a woman. And we know that women are often the center and the hub of the wheel in their household. So I'll open it up to the panel to talk about that, because I also think that practicing and promoting sustainability early in our lives and to the young people in our community is a key to what our future will look like.
That, Kiana, were you getting ready to go? Yeah, that is critical. One of the, when COVID hit, again, it just exacerbated already existing issues. And especially when we talked about children who are now in the home, and also the support system, was impacted as well, people losing their jobs and things of that nature. And so one of the things when we made a full digital transformation, although we're using technology, integrating it with how we farm insects, when you talk about digital literacy gaps, that becomes a different story. When you talk about, Victoria and Kiana and Tangeria, we talk about learning how people learn. And so we realized that was in some cases, we focused a lot. There was a lot of focus on urban areas, and we tend to think Black and brown, but there are a lot of just a cross section of ethnicities that are impacted, especially when you go to rural areas. And so being from a rural area, we're talking about AI on the fringe, artificial intelligence on the fringe. And so when you talked about using smartphones, trying to figure out ways to create curriculum that are going to touch young people and also help train them. And so in being a social enterprise, that's one of the things that's inherently built into our business model is like workforce reskilling. Going to these conferences and you're seeing all these amazing things that people are doing with digitizing horticulture, and you realize you're not teaching this to kids in K through 12. I mean, the day that we're meeting, there's already a gap that's growing. And so how do you make it, there's several factors that you have to consider. How do you make it culturally relevant? What does sustainability even mean? Define that. How do I apply it to my everyday life? How do I see myself as being a part of that supply chain? So when you're talking about food and you're talking to me about sustainabilities and all of these sexy terms, they mean absolutely nothing to someone who may be living in a marginalized community. So what are the language barriers? What's the dialect? How do people learn? Where do they hang out? And so how do you integrate, gamification and other things that make it attractive to people? And so then how do you instill those different components or learning lessons into, hey, come out to a garden and I'm going to give you some grub fertilizer to put into this little seedling for you to grow at home. And hey, when you come by the garden, bring your food scraps with you and just drop them off. And that becomes something that can be applicable to my everyday life, but also factoring in if I'm limited in resources, depending on who the audience is, I need you to make this something that's also easily replicable, something that is cheap. And so all of those different things need to be taken into account, and let those things help you inform what public policy needs to look like as well to support those efforts. Okay, now we have a better understanding of what the triggers are. Now we have a better understanding of what the type of investments need to be that are meaningful for these people in this particular community that makes sense for them, and not just kind of an agnostic application.
Kiana, you were going to add to that?
I feel like Akisi definitely hit on a lot of points that were very important. One thing that I know that across the board, representation is extremely important. And when we disregard the importance of cultural relevance and representation, it has an adverse effect when we're trying to teach those who are not familiar. And I think Akisi really pinpoint that. I know what we do at Cool Moms Dance too. When we first got started, we were approved to become training providers within our fitness format. And one thing we were focusing on is integrating wellness within the family by giving mothers the ability to become instructors in our program, but also training the children to become instructors, because that was literally, I was my first customer. I became an instructor within our format, and my children were co-instructors. And what that does, it teaches discipline. It teaches you about retention and managing what's going on within the household, building ethics and skills that are necessary in order to become available in the market and be able to be responsive to what their needs are when these children go to build lives. And the reality is right now, especially since 2020, we're really reactive to what's going on because we don't know what life is going to be like in the future, and technology is moving so fast. How do we make sure that those who are in marginalized communities are still maintaining what they need, are getting the information that they need, are getting the education that they need, and also the emotional and mental well-being to be able to sustain the life that they're building around them? So I think that the points that Akisi were speaking about are just, we can't speak to it enough. We have to create space where not only are we building things, but we're making it digestible for those who are to come behind us and actually take the baton and continue this on. We want the girls who are going to be the women of tomorrow to want to do the work that we're doing. And we have to make it relevant to them. We have to tap into what their needs are in order to level the playing field, so to speak. So I'm just in awe of just all the women here. I think my heart is really open because it's so beautiful for us to be in a day and age where we can have all these spaces, so much representation here, and we are charging the future for something so beautiful that our grandparents didn't get to see this. They didn't get to connect like this, where we can talk about these important things and regard sustainability, regard how we're going to impact the future, and how we're going to make sure that those who are learning, as Victoria was saying, about one of the most important things that we can do, our healthcare is the most important thing to us right now. COVID is taking over everyone's lives, and we need to make sure that those going into these spaces and learning and becoming educators or being impacted have the ability to digest what it is that they're experiencing. That's so very important.
I agree with everything that each of you have said. I mean, I think that when you think about K through 12, as Akisi was saying, you have to meet them where they are. And with sustainability, teaching them young, I mean, I think in so many world, sustainability at one point had such a negative connotation. And so now it is changing. However, when you teach children young that hand-me-down or secondhand is not a negative thing, and how it can supplement their environment, how it can save water in their neighborhoods, especially when they're not getting healthy water and they're not getting those things, I think it is almost a duty to give back and to go into them and create programs for K through 12 to understand the importance of sustainability and how their contributions matter.
And I actually just want to put my nurse hat on for just a minute when we're talking about that, because so many people take for granted how intelligent our children are. Mm-hmm. Like, people are not having health and wellness conversations with their children. Oh, they're kids, they're resilient, they don't need all that, they be all right, go outside and play. But in all actuality, we have a different breed of children, whether we want to admit that or not. So they have information in front of them all day. We just have to help them synthesize it. And so having those open conversations with your children about these types of topics that we're having right now is so important. In addition to that, again, a lot of people look at medicine and healthcare as, what do they call it? Like the knee-jerk reflex. But we should really be looking at it from a preventative lens, meaning we need to be proactive. We need to get our checkups. We need to do these things. It's not, I'm going to the doctor or the nurse practitioner when I'm sick. It's, I'm going to prevent sickness. I'm going to learn. Like, it's a consultation moment where you're learning. You get the chance to ask questions. You get a chance to figure out what's best for you as an individual based upon your environment and what you have going on, and how you can empower yourself to take better care of yourself. Like, that's how we really should be looking at these doctor's appointments. Dun, 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 dun. You know, they don't have to be like that. They can be a moment of inflection and a moment of question asking. And again, even making sure that you're having, including your children. Like, there's so many times I've been in a pediatric office during my rotations, and the child is just sitting there looking at the wall, picking their fingers. They're not even involved in the conversation. So make sure you're involving your kids in these conversations as well, is the point I wanted to make. Because you better believe mine is only, at 5, mine knew what a uterus was, okay? So I have those conversations.
Bless the secret cocktail. Ladies, we have our first couple of questions from the audience, and this is open to the panel. How have you addressed the needs of students who need that in-person, more tactile instruction that has, now become virtual by necessity? Because we know they can struggle with this virtual environment and these modalities. How have any of you guys bridged that gap, be it in fashion, food, mental wellness, or healthcare baseline?
I can jump in real quick. There is 2 ways. One way is because of the idea with COVID, depending on how your proximity to the individual, I do allow my clients rather to sign up for one-on-ones, if there really is like a huge barrier, huge gap, and I would meet them and just kind of help them through that. But if we're far apart and that's not an option, I give them the will. Like, I give them the complete will on the first day. On my first day with my clients, I'm doing an assessment. So I'm giving them the will. They're sharing their screen. I'm making them click and do stuff because I want to see what their abilities are very early on. Based upon that, then I may know, okay, they need a little coaching or coaxing. I need to explain this and that to them. I need to give them a real good orientation, and I need to be patient with them. Because I'm sorry, they're going to have to get over it sooner or later. I mean, I'm a hands-on person. I have to do with my hands too, but we can do on the computer also. Rather than sitting there just passively learning, you can still be active in learning through the computer.
Like
Kiana,
that.
oh, go ahead, Akisi.
No.
Well, I'm kind of curious, Kiana. I know you and I talked about this. We've talked about this over some time about how your program was very tactile, and it historically it meant meeting in person. And I'm wondering what sorts of things you're putting in place to create that same emotion or sensation with your clients. Is it because your voice is so soothing? And like, what goes into translating that in a virtual environment? And then particularly because you are working, your thesis is around families and that connectedness to your children. And we know this whole environment has made people a bit stir crazy.
Yeah, so thank you for asking that. From this vantage point, we've been focused on really creating spaces where we, before when we were in person, we had an hour and that programming would last for that duration of time. The instructor would be very clear on the agenda and they would be able to manage everything. But because of our integration of technology, things are broken down into bite-sized pieces. You can rewind and go back, and we can interact in a way where we are meeting each family where they are. And then also explaining things thoroughly, because what we're doing is dance as therapy. So we are, providing the dance instruction, but when we get to the therapeutic space, we're explaining exactly what we're doing. We're talking through you know, what's the shared agreement? How do we engage in this space? What are the activities? How do you do the activities? It's a very thorough overview of what they're doing. And then we act it out with them so that they don't feel alone. But in that process, what we try to do is encourage the families to curate their own space, almost where they become the instructors as well by watching it and going through it and getting used to the process. And that has been very helpful. A lot of the feedback that we've gotten back from that has been, you know, the fact that we break it down, we explain it thoroughly. They're not rushing from one point to the other. It's not like a traditional fitness class. It helps provide less anxiety. It's more ease within the process for a family to be able to stop the video and then, okay, let's do this back together. And then they're getting that engagement. But by the time they get to the therapeutic space and we're talking through those things, they understand, both the parent and child, what they're doing and why it's important. And I think that it allowed us to be able to not miss those who were in class, literally just trying to process everything going on within the hour span that we're there in person in a different way. Because, you know, you mentioned earlier about those who were, you know, pivoting to yoga classes at home and how they're like, oh, I can do this. You know, you got to think about the fact that when you don't have to brush your hair a particular way, when you don't have to get, you know, put on to go to class to make sure that you're ready for the world, you can engage in a more authentic way. You're not judging yourself on your stretches or your movement the same way you would if you're in front of people and think you have to do things perfectly. And I think that having that space at home and being able to engage in our particular instruction in that way, it just creates more warmth, especially with the parent and child, because although we are a program and we are a specifically trained program, our whole entire goal is to get the parent and child to engage, to further their connection, to be able to talk about the things that are important and use dance as a form of physical and mental wellness. And we tend to do that, even cross-pollinating that, actually even more now that we are doing it virtually, because they don't feel like they're looking at me, the instructor, they think that's dancing perfectly, and say, okay, I don't really want to give my all because I'm not doing it the way she's doing it. You're at home, you don't care, you're just having fun, you know? So it's a different energy, a different experience. And I think that it makes it a little bit more rich because there's intimacy there that was intended for our particular format.
I think for us being in fashion, and fashion is such a hands-on type of industry where people want to try on things, and you have different designers that cut differently. So, you know, people are afraid to shop online. So virtually we provide information. It's all about information. Information is key, as much information as possible. Measurements are on our website of the clothing, so people know. So just because it's a size 6, it may be cut small. So you can look at the measurements, you can tell how that relates to your body type, you know. But also, like Victoria was saying, we also do one-on-ones and in our showroom. So Monday through Friday, we've pivoted to, we are only open by appointment. And that's so that people have that personal touch. People want to be in the space. They want to come in, they want to try on. And so they have the opportunity to make an appointment and to come in and be the only one in the showroom. And it also gives us the opportunity to treat them with the experience that we want to offer them. And so they get the experience of being in a Bergdorf's without being in a Bergdorf's with, you know, with Shopping Previously Loved, because they can come in, they can have a glass of wine, and they can relax and let some of their cares down. Yes, wine, we serve wine and champagne and all of that. So they can come in and they can have the experience, they can try on their clothes, even if they've seen them online, you know, and they can come in and get the full experience without feeling as if, you know, they are confounded by the COVID and people and, you know, and being afraid. And so we're very safe in that manner, and it gives everyone an opportunity to come in and enjoy their experience.
Which I've enjoyed, and it was awesome, by the way.
Yeah, it is awesome. Isn't it awesome?
We all co-sign on that.
Yes.
Ladies, oh, go ahead, Akisi.
No, I was going to just say very quickly for us, with our container, it has windows, which has serviced us very well. So people can just look in and see what we're doing. But also one of the things we started, we were already doing before COVID hit, and it worked out, is actually sending home kits with kids. So we've got some families right now who are doing like our pilot where they're doing a hatchery to home kit. Yeah. And it's amazing how many people responded to it. Where you get like a little handful of grubs, you get to take them home. And so we have like a bunch of like little e-learning digital assets that you can walk through
I
exercises.
want one.
Send me your address. I will put one in the mail. And we can ship live grubs. Also allowing people to double it as a science project, and so as a social studies project and some other things, and then helping people also kind of bridge, when you talk about bridging that gap of, okay, what does zero waste look like? Hey, when mom and dad get finished with you caring for these grubs and then they double after a couple of weeks, take them to the zoo or take them to the botanical garden and drop them off, donate them, and watch them be fed to a reptile. So those are some tactile ways that we're addressing, kind of bridging the gap for people.
I love all of this. Ladies, we're about to wrap up. There's one last topic, which is a little bit of a pivot, but it relates to all of you. And I think everyone on the panel, as well as everyone in the audience, to have a discussion about digital marketing and brand management as it pertains to female or women entrepreneurs. And I think I'll start with brand management. The ladies on the panel know, and everyone in the cohort who's in the audience, and thank you for the we sisters out there. I'm always pressing them to refine their value proposition and their special sauce, because there's something that each of us does better than anyone else in the world. And whatever that is, it's in your gut and it's in your spirit, and it should lead you throughout your entire journey. And when you're speaking to people, you should lead with that. And so I think as it applies to each of your businesses, it's very, very important to know what your brand stands for and what your brand is doing that no one else is doing, because that gives you your competitive advantage. It also takes the worry out of whether you're going to succeed, because no one else is doing it. So it's worth your time to really refine and focus. I always use the example of myself as an entrepreneur. When I first started, I said, I'm just going to have a marketing agency. That's not focus. You really have to say, I'm going to do market research on social influencers specific to youth culture. And that's even not specific enough. And all of the ladies on the panel, I think, have illustrated that focus in their business and their value proposition. And I charge everybody in the audience to refine, focus. It's those things, it's that thing that will get you the phone call answered, the email answered, the pitch competition award, or just the general support that you need because they can't find it anyplace else. With regard to digital marketing, and they were talking about a bit of the fatigue that's around the Zoom calls, and there's quite a bit of anxiety around social media for sure these days. I think that you have to choose your platform as a consumer and as a CEO. You have to figure out which platform is going to work for you. I mean, Kiana spoke about Clubhouse, and I mentioned her voice, which is really a divine gift, but Clubhouse works because it's audio. And I was listening to something yesterday, audio podcasting and that sort of research is a very intimate, it's an intimate connection with your audience, which is why talk radio is so huge. And Clubhouse, I think, is an iteration of that, but it fits her product, because she's really trying to help women lessen their anxiety and figure out how to better connect with their families. And so you have to find your channel and stick with it. Everything is not for everyone. Just because everyone is on Clubhouse doesn't mean it's for you, or on Facebook for that matter. I think, even when I think about The Secret Cocktail, and I don't know if social media is, well, I do know that Victoria has a strong social media presence.
YouTube.
Right,
huge
it's about
for
YouTube, right? YouTube works for the secret cocktail. I think, you know, with Tangeria, I think it will likely be, and you can speak to this, of course, better than I can, Tangeria. I think it's mostly Instagram, but even in her virtual fashion shows, it's going to show up on Instagram in a way that it's just not going to show up on Twitter. So I think as entrepreneurs and CEOs, you got to pick your channel, you have to prioritize, and you have to stay focused. And then everything else you have to let go and just know that you're doing what you need to be doing. I'm excited to say that we are going to be expanding the programming for the WE program beginning in the spring, summer of 2021, where we will be able to offer workshops around these issues to the broader Atlanta community and anyone in the Southeast that would like to sign up, because we know that there are more than these 15 extraordinary entrepreneurs that need these support tools and wraparound services to see you succeed. So stay tuned. Go to weatlanta.com, sign up for all of our social media. We are active on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And I encourage you to follow all of these businesses as well. Ladies, I will start to wrap up now. And if there are any parting thoughts from any of you, please.
I just want to say thank you guys for having us. This has been amazing. And if anyone wants to contact me, I've put my contact information in the chat. And if you have any questions for me offline, I definitely would love to answer them.
I'd like to add just, again, what I've learned from other people and thinking about how I can incorporate that into my business. I just ask that everyone do the same. You know, sometimes we're so worried about how we're operating and we're focused on our particular niche and how we do it, but identifying the way other people do it and figuring out how we can make that work for us is what's called thinking outside the box, and we should all be doing that. So I just encourage everyone to consider that throughout today and tomorrow.
Collaboration is key. One of the ways we've been able to successfully navigate throughout COVID is through just our network of not only just smallholder farmers and partners, but also just network from the cohorts that we've been a part of, you know, the tribes that we're a part of, and figuring out ways to be creative and collaborate and come up with new products and new ways of business, or just someone who can lend you an ear for a really bad day. To tap into that self-care piece. So definitely not always reaching up, but reaching across has been instrumental in helping us be successful throughout COVID.
My tribe member, I love you so much, Akisi. We're always on the same page. I was going to say the same thing. It's a pleasure to be with you all. I just want to say, I know that this is, you know, more structured, but we have to do a better job at realizing that we are better together. Everything that we need is around us, is within us. If we open up our minds to realize that every single resource that you need is in someone else's trajectory or brain and their scope, and treat each other like family, genuinely, just because we're women, but because we're part of the Atlanta community, because we're part of community, a global community. If we look at each other in that way, we can do anything together. So I just want to remind each and every one of us, as we're looking at ourselves as solopreneurs or entrepreneurs in a space where we're building something, we don't have to build it alone. We have each other to do that, and we really can do better by tapping into that and leaning on one another when we need it. So I thank y'all for allowing us to speak today, and just all the beautiful women that were giving their perspective. It has been a pleasure. I just want us to continue this outside of just a day or a week, for us to really get together on a more continuous basis, to collaborate, to talk through things, to love on one another, to help each other build, because that consistent action is what's going to help us get out of the silos that we've been working within and really build a community that's sustainable. So I want to say thank you, and check out Cool Moms Dance too.
Thank you, Monica. Air hug to everybody.
Yes, yes. Check out all of these wonderful businesses. The Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative would like to thank the Women's Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity to speak on innovation and sustainability and wellness. to the entire community. Please join us on our socials, in our community. We really are driven by empowering women because we think strong women mean strong communities. And the last thing we want to do is announce that all of the WE members, or WE cohort members, will be a part of the Women's Chamber of Commerce because of the grace of Jill and her team. And we're so excited about that. So we can continue these conversations, and we look forward to continuing these conversations with all the members of the Women's Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much. I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon.
You too. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you all so much for that. Again, another amazing panel. To reiterate the points that were said there about supporting each other earlier, when Aisha talked about what's pouring into me, what's in my funnel, the importance of women supporting women is monumental. I personally had the chance to work both with Jill and the Women's Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Women's Entrepreneurship Initiative a couple of years ago, when I was doing a project with Visa that was focused solely on supporting female entrepreneurs, and it's called She's Next, Empowered by Visa. We are just launching, I'm working with them again this year, and they have just announced another $1 million plus commitment in grants to Black female entrepreneurs, as well as mentorships through Black Girl Ventures. They're also working with I Fund Women. So this is She's Next 2021 that was just launched. I urge all of you to take a look at that and to apply for those grants. Again, all about supporting women. So thank you to Monica, all of our panelists, and all of our attendees for realizing that today, and for being so gracious and being so participatory in our chats.